live. I love us. Okay. Sharing a group. I'll let you know when we're live.
Okay.
It usually happens pretty quick. All right, I just click go live and it is on. We are here. Hello. Hello, hello, comadres.
Hi,
We are live. I am going to hop on just so I can see your comments on my phone, but we are here with my friend Deb. Hi, Deb. How are you?
I'm great. And I love that this video chat has already started. And if you caught our faces when we began, we were both like there's just so much
That's usually how it goes. It usually kind of catches us like, oh. The first couple seconds are never graceful, but yet here we are. And I am so super thrilled for this conversation. I've been like wanting it to happen for a long time, and in this space. Debbie is one of my closest friends and one of the people that I love the most on the planet. And so this conversation is going to be extra juicy. So I'm going to go through the motions of the official welcome and tell you a little bit about why these conversations. So we actually picked up these guest interviews at the beginning of the year. And once a month, we'll bring you a fireside chat with a woman that we find inspiring and amazing. And our intention is to create space for authenticity, shared experiences, lessons, and advice. And so we have, I definitely have some questions for Deb, and we can get into it right now, but we definitely also hope that, oh, there's some people watching already. We hope that there are some questions from you, and this is going to be a conversation. So by all means, if you have comments or questions, go ahead and type them up in the comments, and we will bring them up in the chat. And so I am going to now introduce Debbie Magic. Debbie is a Miami-based witch, activist, facilitator, and mindfulness coach. With over 8 years in the mental health world, Debbie has worked with several hundred people, guiding them, including me, guiding them in their own unique journeys back to wholeness. Her psycho-spiritual approach provides safe, sacred space for others to shift and integrate new implicit programming onto both their conscious and unconscious self. And she does this through hypnosis, theta healing, reiki, and counseling. Welcome, Deb! And so we always also started with a personal kind of account, but I just want to let people know just how we've known each other now at least 4 years, I feel like, and 20 lifetimes, right? 400 years, probably. I totally see that.
192.
Exactly. And for us, it was one of those things where the moment that we met, it was instant.
Yeah.
It was love.
Yeah.
And it's really wonderful because I think if I'm super honest, I feel like around the time that we met is when my own spirituality and my own embrace of my bruja was kind of starting to wake up, and having our friendship has did so much, especially at that time, and now continues to cultivate it. But in that moment, I was like, oh, there's more of us out there, and I'm meeting them. And it was like this beautiful confirmation that I could fully embrace that side of me in myself as well, and enjoy it with others. So
how yay. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course. Yeah. And so today, again, as you're watching, if you have any questions or anything that you'd like to share, please go ahead. But we are going to jump in. And usually, I mean, this conversation is going to go like lots of different places, but we want to kick it off around our monthly theme this month, which is self-care. And there's something that we do in the community. Like, we usually have a series of topics that we think are relevant and important for us to cover, but we really choose the topic, like we feel into the topic as the month is approaching. And it was evident that self-care needed to rise to the top of the list. And I think it's also interesting because for a lot of us, it usually is at the bottom of the list. And we find ourselves in the middle of a global pandemic. It doesn't matter how many times I say that, it doesn't sound any less daunting, right? So we find ourselves in the middle of a global pandemic, and it feels like the most important thing to take care of ourselves in all the ways. So I feel like we can kick off this conversation just by asking you, like, what do you understand as self-care? And maybe like then and now, you know? Because I feel like those are two different questions.
Question. So self-care to me means drawing a circle around myself and declaring that everything inside of the circle is holy. And so anything and everything that I allow into that circle gets to treat me a specific way, including myself. And so a lot of the language that I use is inner child and self. Yeah. And inner child represents the part of us that comes up especially during this experience of my fears, my scarcities, my doubts. She's inside of the circle too.
Yeah. So, oh my God, could you say that again? Drawing a circle around yourself?
Drawing a circle around myself and declaring that everything inside of the circle is holy.
I feel good just listening to that.
Yeah. And it's especially delicious when we include the part of us that has suffered. And the part of us that right now shows up as frantic, anxious, overwhelmed, scared. And it's understanding that this part of us is so protective. And she's trying to love us in the way that we learned. And oftentimes it's loving us through an effective means like self-criticism, judgment, scarcity. The moment I understood that my shadow was as holy as my light, self-care changed. And I think that's a big distinction between the before and the after. Like self-care before, I think, was way more superficial. Like, okay, I'm a little exhausted, so let me self-care with a bubble bath. Let me self-care with a manicure. So it was the doingness.
Yes.
Self-care was in doing. Now I'm really understanding and integrating self-care as being. How am I being with myself in the moments of joy and in the moments of breakdown? That's self-care. So intimacy with self is self-care.
Yes. Yes. I love that. I'm like still processing it. And there's something also important that you spoke about that we can, like, let's get into it a little bit, because not everyone is familiar with the concept of our shadow.
Okay.
And so, like, what do you mean by that?
Okay. So for the sake of clarity, shadow and inner child and ego can be used interchangeably in this conversation. There's this huge movement around we need to transcend our ego. I disagree. I think we're here to befriend our ego. Yes. And when we begin to understand our ego as our inner child, the part of us that has suffered, it allows us to access compassion instead of resistance. And our shadow self is the emotions, the beliefs that were interrupted when we were children, that were made wrong, that were criticized by our caregivers or our environment. So we move it into our subconscious mind. That's the shadow, what we've repressed, what we've resisted. And usually our shadow is inherited because in ourselves what our parents resisted within themselves, which their parents resisted within themselves.
Yes.
So I'm going to put it this way. The shadow for all of us at one point is super, super charged with pain and fear. Why? Because as children, the way that we operate up until the age of 8 is that if we experience any kind of disconnect from our caregivers, our body does respond as if there's a danger. Why? Because as children, from a biological standpoint, if we disconnect from our caregivers, we might die. Our chance of survival lessens. And so it might be sadness that is our shadow. When we were sad and we cried, our parents might have gone, if you cry, I'm going to give you a reason to cry.
Yeah.
In that moment, child learned, oh, okay, sadness creates conflict and
danger.
So let me repress it into my conscious. And now as adults, when we feel sad, we also want to interrupt it.
Yes.
Because it doesn't feel safe and our body goes into fight, flight, or freeze.
Yes.
Because that's what subconsciously has been anchored to certain emotions.
Yes.
So I do want to validate that shadow does feel unsafe as we begin to tap into it, as we begin to reanimate the inner child.
Yes.
It's a process of neutralizing the shadow and realizing that every emotion is holy.
Yes.
But the thing that we've anchored to specific emotions are precisely what we get to neutralize and clear, because it's not necessarily true in 2020. Mm-hmm. And I would say that that's self-care too, having the patience to lean into our shadow, invite her in for tea and ask, what do you have to share with me?
Yep.
Now please leave.
Yes.
Like, you're allowed in my home for a time, but you don't get to take over.
Yeah.
The relationship with shadow.
Yes.
And the intimacy, intimacy that creates, it revolutionizes everything, Gabby.
It does. And I love that you made that point about, because I do think that there's so much out there, I think, in lots of different circles. Like if you go into like the entrepreneur space, it's like, crush your fear. It's like hyper masculine, like you're going to come in with like a bulldozer and crush it. Right. And then like, if you go into like the love and light crew, they're like, transcend your ego. And it's like, and in both ways, we are sort of like inherently negating the existence of something that already is within us, and it is never going to fully go away. And so that the actual healing comes when we see it and we acknowledge it and we receive and we accept it, right? It's part of us. And then you can change your relationship to it.
Yes.
But not pretend that you're going to, because like I always say it this way, like it's like when you're dealing with a bully, like if you bully the bully's going to get madder and like come back for vengeance. So like you're not going to crush it. You're also not going to like throw agua florida on it and it disappears, like, right? Like that's not going to happen either.
I needed to know that my first year as a witch. Like I threw so much agua florida.
Like, why don't you go away?
Stop it!
So yeah, like there is, I think like that is, for me, that is magic. Like that is power. It is all of the ways that we embrace and integrate, because it is our conscious and our subconscious, right? Like anything that we want to create in the world, when we ignore the subconscious, or like when we don't get what we want, is because there is that shadow side being like, hi, I'm over here. Remember me? You didn't acknowledge me. Hi. I'm the one that wants the opposite of what you want. Hello. And I'm making it happen. Hi, I won, you know? Like that's it. Wink, wink.
It's actually fascinating because we can't ignore the shadow.
Yeah.
We can be unaware of it. Like our shadow is imprinted in our reality. If there are relationships that aren't working, it's because our shadow is revealing herself to us. If we're not translating into abundance, it's because our shadow is revealing herself to us. If we are in anxiety and scarcity, it's because our shadow is revealing herself to us. So she runs around our life, and the energy around us is like clay, like it's malleable. And she's going around creating figures that then show up in our experience. We create from our subconscious mind. So it's so important that we befriend our subconscious mind. And if we think about it, Gabby, on a collective, what is Mother Earth doing? She's going, hey guys, Your shadow, like the way that we've been relating to each other, doesn't work anymore. This isn't sustainable. You're taking, and I'm not receiving. So we've got to find a new way of relating to each other. How does that translate to self-care on an individual level? We are learning new ways to relate to our inner child, to our shadow self. We are learning to integrate. And I use the word witch, but again, I also feel like language is very malleable. If the women who are listening identify as intuitive or connected, or same concept, as women, we are activating our ability to transmute energy. And transmute energy means taking dense energy vibration and elevating it. That's what we're doing in shadow work. We're taking shame, which is the densest energy of all, and we're converting it to compassion. We're taking fear and we're converting it to hope. We're taking anger and converting it to understanding. And I think it's important for me to insert this here.
Yeah.
We are all of it. It is not either or. It's not I'm either ashamed or I'm enlightened. You can be ashamed and enlightened. You can have had moments of enlightenment where you felt so much the self-care and it felt so good, and then 2 weeks later you're angry and upset again. That doesn't mean that you didn't have a moment of self-love.
Yeah.
It's the flow of it. It's acknowledging the moments that you do, and then also accepting that we're human, which is why shadow work is so important, because we're going to experience the whole gamut of emotions for the entirety of our life. That's what we signed up for. But the emotions no longer need to take us to the underworld. Now, I'm sad. Oh, okay, girl, what's coming up for you? I love you. Instead of, I'm sad. I'm beginning to get really anxious. So let me busy myself, but I can't busy myself because I'm at home. So I'm just gonna experience.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I feel like we can continue this conversation about self-care and shadow. I will share a very personal example of something that I was experiencing yesterday. So I feel like I had a moment in the afternoon where I was so exhausted, and I was feeling like I had been like giving, and I hadn't made time for me. And it felt like I felt depleted. And then I had this very real moment that's kind of relevant to what we're experiencing now, where I was like, I'm healthy. Who the fuck am I to feel bad right now? Like, how dare I feel bad when I'm here healthy with food in the fridge and a roof over my head and a bed, and my son is healthy and my parents are healthy? Like, who am I to like need self-care right now? Like, I had a moment, right? And I think it's like there's like a whole other layer right now happening because of everything that's going on. And I took a nap, woke up with a totally different perspective. That's what I needed. I needed to rest. But yeah, like I think our like understanding that our shadow doesn't always look the same, and it continues to evolve as we evolve, and it gets sometimes trickier and sneakier. And so do our like our ability to relate to our shadow gets to continue to evolve, right?
Yes. And I love that you brought that up, because that I so resonated with that, and that was literally me yesterday. It reached 5 p.m. and I was depleted, and I still had emails to send and people to reach back out to, and I felt this stirring in my chest. Like, for me, it showed up as, okay, something's off. Like, something's there that was preventing me from producing. So I turned off my laptop, I sat down, and what ended up coming up was a lot of sadness. And I allowed myself to cry, and like on the floor crying for about 30-40 minutes. And once those 40 minutes were completed, I felt so much better, because here's a tool for self-care. Be a yes to yourself. Be a yes to whatever expression of yourself shows up. In that moment, for me, sadness showed up, and I was a yes. And I like to bring humor into it, because I don't want to take it too seriously. I feel like those moments are emotional farts, if you will. But it's just like you just get to release it and hold the space for it and not make it mean anything. Like, I think that's part of, because we live in a culture that's so analytical, we try to analyze everything. And so if we're feeling sadness, we invalidate that with, well, there's no evidence for you to be sad. You're healthy, your parents are healthy, and your son is healthy. You're not allowed to feel that way. So it's like our head and our heart are sitting at a table, and our brain is telling our heart, hey, I discovered why you felt that way. It's because of this, that, and the other. And also, here's why you can't feel that way. Here you go. And then your heart is like grabbing that blueprint, that mess that the brain has like analyzed. And she's like, thank you so much for making the time to understand me. And I still get to feel this. So self-care is being a yes to whatever your heart is expressing and needing at that moment. And I think I also want to make this digestible for the women who are listening. And so I do offer this tool as you're working with your shadow, like 3 steps: intention, attention, and attitude. What is your intention? Is your intention to bring more joy, more ease? Is it grounding? Is it compassion for self? What's the intention? We get to get clear on what it is that we're trying to cultivate in our relationship with ourselves. That gets to be the foundation for self-care. The second is attention. And this always makes me laugh because there's research done by Harvard that we suck at attention. Like 47% of our time we are
not present.
Being present. That means that 50% of our life, you guys, we miss.
Not here.
Because we're not here. And so it's the act of continuing to anchor into the right now. Like, bring attention to your right now. Don't try to figure out 6 months from now. Stop focusing on what happened 6 months before. Right now, in this moment, and anchor it back to that intention. If my intention is compassion with self, then I'm bringing it back to right now, and I'm going to be compassionate with myself. And the last is the attitude. Like, truly, truly, I invite all of the women here to find a picture of themselves as a little girl and make it their screensaver. Because when that shadow comes up, that critical voice, the one who's in fear comes up, it's easier for us to access the attitude of kindness when we're envisioning it as a little girl who was hurt instead of a hairy, scary monster that's out to get us. It's just our inner child. And it's an inner child that's trying to love us the way that we were taught to love. So she's actually doing the best that she can to protect us with the tools and the awareness that she was given as a little girl. And if that doesn't work for us, that's mindfulness. Mindfulness literally translates into seeing clearly so that we can respond effectively. If a little kid was crying because she was hurt, you would not beat her up and lock her in a closet. You would show her kindness. You'd probably get her some juice and then let's watch Frozen. Be that with yourself. Be that with your inner child and shadow. Our relationship to ourself, Gabby and Queens, literally sets the tone for every other relationship in our life, including our relationship with spirit, the universe, with time, with money, with friendships, with partners. The way that the subconscious mind works is that it's constantly trying to prove our implicit beliefs right. Our implicit beliefs are the beliefs we made up as children. So imagine that our mind has put on red sunglasses, and everywhere that you look, it doesn't matter the color, it doesn't matter the experience, you see red. Those are your implicit beliefs. So self-care is the ability to begin changing what you believe about yourself if what you're seeing doesn't work for you anymore.
The hearts are coming up. Because I think that, and there's something really important about, like, I love that intention, attention, and
intention, attention, and attitude.
Because I definitely, like, one of the things that I've been doing now, I'm journaling mornings and evenings, like when I wake up and then right before I go to bed, and like about my day and what I've experienced. And one of the things that's been really powerful has been literally like writing about the experience of feeling the things. And I think that this is something that I learned in gratitude, which Debbie also did, was the, like, I am experiencing X. So like an emotion, right? Like I am experiencing sadness or I'm experiencing anger because, and we were talking about this a few days ago as well, like in the community, because when you do that, you detach and you no longer have to identify with whatever the emotion is. You can just kind of be literally through your language, you can be the awareness of the emotion. And for me, journaling has also opened up like another layer beneath the emotion where I am noticing what are the messed up beliefs that always keep coming up. Because yesterday when I was tired, like there was a new belief there. There was like, it was like, it's what I call it. It's now like my pandemic shadow. My pandemic shadow is how dare I complain about anything? How dare I ever feel bad when we are healthy? That's my pandemic shadow. Like I got a new one, but an old one came up. And the old one that came up is like, you see, no matter how much you do, it will never be enough. You will never be enough. And that's like my like the root, right? Like core shitty belief. Yeah. And so like, but for me, just the act of journaling on a regular basis and to be seeing like, oh, and then I felt that I wasn't enough and that no matter how much I did, I wouldn't be enough. Just by writing that down every day, I'm like, oh, wait a second. This isn't real. This is a thing that I am experiencing. This is that old thought. This is my shadow freaking out. But this is not something that I have to believe.
Yes.
And so like I started, one of the things that I started, I have like a little pocket like in the page every day where I write like the thoughts that I get to let go of. Like what are the things that like I get to let go of? I no longer have to, like be a slave to.
That's so beautiful to me because right now, as a collective, as an energy, it's the hugest reset button. We are calibrating. And so we're getting to be so deliberate about the beliefs that we are anchoring into our bodies and our energy field now.
Yeah.
So awareness is everything. And I love you're speaking into unattachment, not being attached to this emotion defines me, not being attached to, oh my God, this belief defines me. Instead going, oh, there's an emotion. Oh, that's a belief. And instead of looking at it from the language of, is this right or is this wrong? Yeah. Because we condemn ourselves and transformation has no morality. It's, is this effective or ineffective for what I desire? Yes. We are totally changing our ethereal bodies. And I love the visual of, if we look up at the sky, it's blue. It's a beautiful blue sky. And sometimes there's a really crazy rainstorm and we can't see the blue. It's just all gray and rainy. That doesn't mean that the blue stops being there. Yeah. And I offer that to piggyback off of what you're saying. Sometimes we feel emotions that become like the gray, rainy clouds. But we are not our thoughts and we are not our emotions. We're the consciousness that sits behind it. That's why we're able to go, oh, Debbie's having this emotion. She's feeling sad. Oh, and while she's feeling sad, she's remembering back to college when she felt really lonely. That's really, okay. I love you. Mm-hmm. And so the blue sky is still there. The gray clouds are still there. All it means is that it's a rainy day. Yeah. And I think it's really important to speak into self-care doesn't get to be a condition for love.
Oh.
Say that again. Self-care doesn't get to be a condition for love.
Please.
What do I mean that?
Go on. Yeah.
Especially as women who have learned to be entrepreneurial, who we were raised in a culture that's hyper masculine. What we have learned is that our value is in producing, that our feminine, our beingness is not enough. There gets to be some kind of production, some kind of evidence. And when it comes to self-care, that rigidity, that masculine rigidity, at times what we do is, okay, I'm going to self-care because I've been feeling sad. So I'm going to schedule in, I got to read a book, and then I'm going to do a foot soak, and then I'm also going to meditate. Yeah. And then when we don't do any of those, we berate ourselves. Yes. And we go, you suck at self-care. Like you didn't do the things that you said that you were going to do. And so for self-care, it gets to be,
like for so many people, that is the experience of self-care. It's like
it's
scheduling things that are supposed to make them feel good in an extremely superficial level, not putting them at the top of the priority list, and now self-care becomes something that you feel guilty about because you didn't do it.
Yes.
So you're just doubling down on the crap.
Yes. And so like noticing where we're doing self-care from a place of I'm doing it for love instead of I'm doing it from love.
Yes.
Huge distinction.
Yes.
Like self-care could be you sitting outside and crying and kicking dirt. Self-care could be you stretching because your back hurt. Self-care could be you taking a nap. Self-care could be you finally telling that person, look, I'm exhausted of the phone calls that we've been having. Like, figure your stuff out because I just can't hold the space for it anymore.
Yeah.
And that was messy, and that was ugly, and that was self-care.
Yes.
Because you're being a yes to yourself.
Yes.
But being deliberate about catching yourself if we're going into, okay, self-care is a condition for love. And I've done it. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do a foot soak. And then I don't. And then I berate myself. So self-care is, yes, doing this, but doing this that's coming from being loving to yourself. Yeah.
Yes. And I think that is something that so many women are just beginning to understand what that even means. Because I think that we are so socialized to just be for everyone else. This is also something that came up recently in the community. We're talking about how as women, we are taught, as you were saying, that our function is to do, but also to do for others.
Yeah.
And that doing for yourself means that you're selfish and that you are thoughtless. And so untangling and releasing all of that and seeing it for the BS that it is, and also managing other people's reactions to your bold, like taking care of yourself is a whole thing. And it's real. Like, we get to call it out, and yes, and you are still important at the end of the day, and you should still keep at it.
And I'm gonna piggyback off of something that you said. Managing other people's responses to our self-care.
Yeah.
For many women, we have learned as children that we are responsible for regulating other people's emotions. So if mom was upset, I'm responsible for making sure that she calms down so that connection can happen. If dad's upset, I'm responsible for calming him down so that he can be nice to me. Yeah. So what some of us have learned is that, okay, my authenticity might create conflict. So what I've been trained to do is then to regulate others when I'm being my authentic self. So if I'm being authentic and it triggers someone, now I feel responsible for their emotions. And so now I got to take care of them. Yeah. That is a learned behavior, and it is no longer effective. We are not responsible for regulating anyone's emotions other than our own, and if we have children. Yeah. So if someone is responding poorly to your self-care, what an invitation for them to look at what's coming up for them. But we are not responsible for managing their response. We do get to look at what comes up for us. Like, oh, I was being authentic and taking up space, and I feel guilty now. I feel like I'm being selfish. That's where we can lean in. But Pepito got mad because I'm using the bathroom to take a bath. Okay, be upset. I'm gonna do that.
Yeah. I honestly think like that's got to be like a solid 40% for a lot of people. Because the time and energy and space that guilt over other people's reactions take, that toll that it takes on us and how we feel responsible for that is crushing. It's crushing. Marlene has a comment, so true. We get that so confused as sealers too. Healers can tend to, There's a lot of healers in this community, so we can speak into that.
And I love that that's being brought up, and here's why. Because as women, and I'm going to bring in a little bit of Wiccan tradition because
Go for it.
In the Wiccan tradition, there are 4 archetypes for women. There are 4 ways of being in communion with God, the universe, source, spirit, whatever.
Yeah.
The 4 are martyr, saint, virgin, witch. The martyr,
Mm-hmm.
reaching communion with God, connection with the universe through sacrifice. How many of us women have embodied the belief that our value is in sacrificing ourselves for the well-being of others?
Oh,
And
yeah.
it has served a purpose, but we're shifting out of it.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank God.
Another is, yeah, seriously, the virgin. The virgin has nothing to do with sexuality. It's reaching communion with the universe, with spirit, by becoming whole unto herself. I've got me. I've got my back. I've taken my power back. I imagine that many of las comadres have also accessed this archetype at one point or another. The other archetype is the saint. Saint connects to spirit through service. I also make up that a lot of the women in this conversation have also accessed that archetype. We've embodied all of it. And now we're moving into the archetype of witch, which is finding communion and connection with spirit through pleasure, through self-care, through delight. And if witch has a weird connotation for you, change the language. The point is that we're moving into a space as individuals and as a collective where connection is happening through delight. Transformation is happening through joy. Our intuition and our joy are one and the same. But we've been disconnected from our pleasure because who am I? Oh my God, who am I to be in delight when everyone else is struggling? Who am I to be joyful when there are people who are hurting? I get that. Compassion is medicine. It allows us to sit in equality with others. And also, that doesn't mean that we need to cut off our leg because other people are missing a leg. We get to
keeps coming up, like, no one wins when you play small. Like, no one wins when you dim your light. No one, not even you. Nobody else.
And then what we anchor into the collective is a global epidemic. Because we've been denying ourselves. Earth is a mirror to us right now. She's hurting. She can't keep up anymore. Like, she cannot. And so many of us as women are like, I'm exhausted. My soul is tired. I can't keep up. I can't keep doing. And that's what we've learned. So this is such a collective reset and such a deliberate recalibration that's going on energetically and individually. And I do think that self-care is the medicine. I think self-care is what's anchoring in the new earth and the new consciousness.
Yes, it's so, I love that this conversation has taken this turn, because it's like we are talking about the self-care that runs to the core, like the self-care that is deep, the self-care that is like truly like where it all comes from. Because it's just like one of the questions I had for you was like, do we need to change our core beliefs in order to prioritize self-care in our lives? And that's been kind of like what we've been talking about today, bringing awareness to self-care in these moments. And I think like it'd be great to expand a little bit about how you like, let's like talking about what we're living right now and this pandemic, and how like going deeper into what the opportunity is in this reset, not only for the world, but a reset for ourselves in the context of putting ourselves back up first. I mean, this isn't empirical, this is anecdotal. Every single like person that I've ever spoken to about this, anytime that they get busy in their lives, taking care of themselves becomes last on the list. And how, like, what a horrible shame that this is, that we have been taught that we are last. Because that's what we're saying. We have been taught that no matter what may be happening, we are last, because, and for reasons that might appear completely valid, right? Like it might appear like we need to hustle for money. We need to go out and we need to meet the people. We need to take care of the kids. We need to make dinner. We need to like be with our partner. And so at the end of the day, the thing that gets shifted back to the next day and then like is piled upon layers and layers of guilt because you didn't do it, is the taking care of yourself. And it isn't just the bath or the massage. it's really goes to the core of how we feel about ourselves, how worthy we feel of honoring all of us and listening and responding to what we need, right? So how is this moment an opportunity to shift that?
That we could talk about this question alone forever.
Yeah.
And I'm going to start with an image because I love images and analogies. What you are describing is like having a car that has no gasoline. Your car is on empty, and you offer 3 people a ride when your car is on empty. And so they all snuggle into the car and you push the car. And so it's what you said earlier, do we need to change our implicit beliefs in order for self-care to be a reality? I think our beliefs change through the practice of self-care. I think that one can be collapsed with the other because our emotions are like little red flags showing us where we're holding beliefs that either work and are effective when we feel good, or they're showing us beliefs that aren't effective because we feel guilty.
Yeah.
So if guilt comes up, okay, what's there? Oh, here's a belief. Yeah. So we've been taught to put ourselves last. I feel like in many ways we've been taught not to consider ourselves at all. Like we don't even make it on the list. And so back to this mirroring that's going on with Earth and us as women.
Yes.
Mother Earth is depleted.
Yes.
She is exhausted. And what are we seeing on a collective? Connection is beginning to happen. New ways of relating are beginning to happen. Intimacy is beginning to happen. And so when it comes to feminine and masculine energy, and I'm not going to talk about history like the way the textbooks have it, I'm going to talk about it as energetic history. When we think about our history as humans, the feminine was really powerful once upon a time. Think back to Egypt, Isis, the goddesses, the Celtic goddesses. She was alive. She was alive and she was honored. And then the wounded masculine took over. And the wounded masculine is the go, 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 do, do, do. You're not valuable unless you produce. We don't care about your emotions. They're useless. It's almost robotic. So it silenced the feminine. It put the feminine to sleep. And as a result, we've been in this hyper-masculine energy. And now is the resurrection of the sacred feminine. And we're seeing it in communities of witches. We're returning to our hearts. So we're not wrong for where we are in our individual process. It's mirroring what's going on in a collective. We are taking our hearts back. We've learned to read all of our life from our head up, from our logic, from our brain, because that's the masculine. The brain is the masculine. We try to make sense and analyze. And now we don't have a choice to return to our hearts, because our heart is going, hey, I'm feeling this thing. Hey,
remember me?
I need your loving. And sadness is an emotion that brings us to nurture ourselves. Anger is a bodyguard emotion that shows us where we get to set boundaries. Every single emotion is sacred and here to support us. So our heart is actually the point. We are returning to our hearts. We are returning to our emotions. And the journey from head to heart is self-care.
Yes.
And it's really getting that we've embodied what we're seeing culturally. Our brain has learned to belittle our heart. The masculine has learned to control the heart. How do we see this? Men paid more. There's an inequality
Abuse.
with all of the things. All of it. And we're the context for it. Context is our relationship to ourself, and it creates the content in our life. Life isn't happening to us, it's happening from us. And when we start to let go of judgment and stop making things bad and wrong, we're able to see it more clearly and start creating effective change. I feel like you want to say something, but I'm going to complete this thought with right now we have a responsibility, and responsibility isn't the, oh, I have a responsibility. It's our ability to respond thoughtfully and kindly to ourselves. Back to being a yes to our hearts. Our heart emits 60% more electromagnetic waves in our brain, which means that if we use this time to really connect to our hearts, be a yes to our hearts, whether the heart is sadness, anger, joy, confusion, rest, being a yes to that and activating our superpower, which is our heart, instead of trying to analyze and structure and produce our way into healing.
Yes.
We've gotten as far as we can get by understanding our way.
With the mind.
Now it's about the visceral experience of integrating what we've learned into how we're treating ourselves and how we're being.
Yes. I mean, I love everything that you just said, and it's so resonating with me even personally right now, because like for weeks the cards that I've been pulling and the messages I've been receiving are like, turn this off, turn this on. Like, turn off your mind, turn on your heart. Because like the answers are going to come from your heart. And as you were speaking, I was even thinking about the reality of those of us that are privileged enough to be able to practice social distancing, that we need to stay healthy right now. And those of us that are privileged enough to be able to isolate in our homes and still be able to somewhat sustain ourselves. I think that we are being offered an incredible opportunity to look inward, whether we like it or not. Because the other thing that I'm noticing is that I think for a lot of people, their go-to is service. And often at a detriment to themselves. That the service is, oh, like, I'm feeling something, let me go help other people. Let me go be there for other people. And we physically cannot right now. And other than making a donation to a GoFundMe page, you cannot go to the place and help the people.
Yes.
And so you also are being invited to look inward and to open your heart.
And thank you for bringing this up, because yes, social distancing. Yes, social distancing. Yes, social distancing. And I'm also kind of amused because I caught myself doing the same thing of like, I'll sit down in a meditation and it's so juicy and I get all these insights and I immediately go, oh my God, okay, so I need to make this into a course and I need to offer videos for people because they need support. And once again, it's almost like masculinizing the energy. And my spirit guides are like, bitch, stop trying to share your channel. Like, drink it, receive it. And I still catch myself going into, I need to serve. I need to create something to love people. And so the invitation is always to witness yourself with a sense of curiosity and amusement, because if we can't laugh at ourselves, then we're taking life and intuition too serious.
Yes.
All a positive joke anyways. And to your point, like, even the chakras that I've developed, like, I've spent way more time developing my third eye than my heart.
Yes.
And coming to that realization, I'm choosing to laugh at it.
Yeah.
Our heart is our superpower. Our heart contains all of our wisdom from all of the lifetimes that we have done. Our brain only contains the knowledge from this lifetime. Yeah. So it's like being offered, do you want change or would you like a mountain of gold?
Yeah.
And a lot of us have been trained to go for the change.
Yes.
I'll take just a few coins, thank you, instead of really dipping into heart space. Yeah. And so when it comes to service, I would remember the archetype of saint. So as women, we have embodied that archetype of, okay, connection happens through service. Yeah. I would invite you to get creative around how you're defining service, because it doesn't need to be going to physically be with someone, and also the invitation to look at the identity that you're leaning into. Are you operating from the belief that you don't have anything to offer unless you go and do? In which case, that's something to look at and decide if that's effective or ineffective for you. Yeah. Because right now, I think more than ever in human history, we're really getting how interconnected we are.
Yeah.
So you being joyful and caring for yourself and setting boundaries is doing more for the collective than you going to sacrifice yourself and jeopardize your health because you think that that's what service is supposed to look like.
Can you please say that one more time? Because
Okay.
I know a lot of us need to hear it.
Yes. That you are doing more for the collective right now by leaning into your joy, into your self-care, into honoring yourself, establishing boundaries, than by going into sacrificing yourself, the doing
Yeah.
in the idea that this is how I serve humanity.
Yeah.
It might not be anymore.
Yes.
Everything right now, we're being asked to look at it and decide whether it needs to be transformed or whether it's strong enough to survive.
Yes.
Service gets to transform because
Yes.
service is no longer sacrificing ourselves for the well-being of others. Service gets to come from, we have filled ourselves up so much.
We're overflowing.
I'm overflowing, and now my overflow is medicine to others. And that doesn't mean that I need to create a package for my overflow.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
sometimes jumping on a call is your medicine. Sometimes
Yes.
meditating and allowing yourself to take a nap is medicine for the collective. Sometimes slowing down and being a yes to yourself is medicine for the collective. You are the gateway to everything. We are God. We are goddess. Like if I were to tell you, Gabby, and whoever's watching, hey queen, go get a cup and go to the ocean and then fill that cup with water. Well, first of all, I would hope that the response is, sorry, I can't, I'm social distancing. But if you came back to me with a cup filled with ocean water, and I told you that stopped being the ocean because you took it away from the ocean, your response would probably be something like, that doesn't make sense, Deb. This is still ocean water. It's just a smaller measure of the ocean.
Yeah.
We are that cup of water. We are divinity in a smaller container. And so we get to treat ourselves as holy. There are certain cultures, when I went to Indonesia early this year before COVID, they do what's called buha. And buha is offerings that they do to their deities 3 times a day.
Wow.
And I loved that. And I started to sit with that and reflect on it. And what if self-care was our buha to ourselves?
Yes.
What if self-care was offering to the goddess that we are?
Yes.
And really holding ourselves as reverent, like respect for who we are. We have been through extraordinary challenges, and I'd venture to say that most of us have seen the worst in people, and we choose to believe in the best in people. We've overcome every single challenge. We've taken our power back. We're resurrecting. They've tried to bury us and burn us, and still we survive. God, that's worthy of our respect and our offering and our love and our attention. And so the moment we begin to start seeing self-care as buha, which is what I've started to do as this offering, that it also becomes a really beautiful experience of spending time with yourself.
And it comes from being, it comes from the deepest part of you. It doesn't come from this to-do list of what you should be doing. And I think that's what I've loved the most about this conversation. And I had a feeling this is the turn that it would take, is that once you have integrated and processed your worthiness and your wholeness and your divinity, then like you're able to be aware and listen and be like, is it a bath? Is it watching Netflix with my blanket? Is it rest? Is it being on the phone with somebody that I miss? Is it putting boundaries on somebody else that's like stepping over them? Like it's almost like we have created these containers, right? And I say we have created them because I feel like our subconscious has created this. So we have created these containers to give us the chance to pay attention, to take away all of those distractions and be like, okay, here you are with yourself. Like, remember that you are whole. Be it, live it, and let self-care and puha come from the deepest part of you. Like I had a moment on, so I think like all of these were little self-care moments. on Thursday, Patty Suau texts and she's like, we should have a dance party at Las Comadres. On Friday, that's exactly what we did. And like 25 women jumped on Zoom and we had the best dance party. And that was self-care.
Yes.
And I was sweating at the end of that dance party. And I was like, it was like Friday night at 10 p.m. It was like, oh, bath. And like, it was the juiciest bath, the candles. And I was listening to like this like remake of Lean On Me. And like, it was just like, everything was just like, oh, this is it. But it was so, it came from like, oh, like the deepest parts of me, like the realizations and the like, the little light going off. It's not coming from the outside in, it's from the inside out. And that's how you know that you're living into it. And you get to note what that feels like so that you can keep coming back to it. Because I've certainly also been like, oh, I need to schedule this and this and this because this is my self-care time. And then I'm doing the things stressed at the other things that I'm not doing, right? Like,
I'm trying to hurry past it so I can get to my next to-dos.
It's not exactly like, when is the self-care done? Because I have a lot to do today. Like, and that's not the point. Yeah. It's about like, because ultimately when you are honoring self-care within yourself, you're living in self-care.
Yeah.
It is your state of being.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for this delicious conversation, Gabby.
Oh my God, thank you.
I'm going to offer this to you, and you let me know if you want me to send it. I'm
yes,
happy
please.
to send a hypnosis meditation on healing the self-betrayal with the inner child and creating intimacy and connection. So you can share that with.
Absolutely. We're going to add you to the group right after this conversation because I'm sure that a lot of people are going to watch this a little later because it'll obviously stay in the group. We've also recorded this, so this is going on YouTube. So as these like people like watch and process, if you have questions for Deb or comments or anything that you want to share, we're going to keep the conversation going in the comments. And absolutely, you can share the hypnosis yourself, my darling.
All right.
Thank you so much for your time. This was as juicy as ever.
This is self-care. This is
self-care. Exactly. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed, Comadres. We love you. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Okay. All right, let me stop the recording.